The Skoda Enyaq is the first fully electric SUV made by Skoda, and you can kind of think of it as the twin brother of the Volkswagen ID.4 and the upcoming Audi Q4 e-tron. Now in this video I'm going to show you everything you need to know about this new fully electric SUV, and we're going to take it for a drive. First, let's start with a quick overview of the different versions that are available for the Enyaq. I'm going to pop that on the screen right now. As you can see, there are 5 versions and 3 battery sizes. Those numbers represent the battery size, so the Enyaq 80 has a battery pack with a capacity of just over 80 kilowatt hours, and the Enyaq 60 has a battery capacity of about 60 kilowatt hours. The range varies from 355 to 537 kilometers, and the power varies from 185 horsepower to 306 if you go for the RS model. And in addition, you can choose between rear-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive. The X on the ADX stands for 4-wheel drive. Now, not all versions are available at the start. Skoda will kick off with a first edition, just like this car. Now let's talk a little bit more about the range. The car I have here today has the 80 kilowatt hours battery, and on paper it will do 537 kilometers. Now in reality it's more like 460, 480, and in the winter even a bit less. This one is the rear-wheel drive version. It has an electric motor in the back that has 204 horsepower, and the car will do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 8.6 seconds. As standard, the car can charge up to 50 kilowatts, but 100 and 125 kilowatts is optional. Now that's an option that most people probably will get and probably should get. Now charging up to 100 or 125 kilowatts is definitely not slow, it's fine, but there are some competitors that are doing this a bit better. For instance, Ford, the Ford Mustang Mach-E can charge up to 150 kilowatts, Tesla can charge up to 250 kilowatts, and Hyundai and Kia are both coming with a car later this year that can charge up to 350 kilowatts. But having said that, charging up to 100 or 125 kilowatts isn't slow by any means. Now that's it for the range and the performance. Let's have a closer look at the car now. Here are 5 interesting details on the front side of the Enyaq. Despite the fact that the Enyaq is fully electric, Skoda has chosen to put a large grille on the front of the car. Now the car really doesn't need a grille because it's fully electric and there's no combustion engine. That needs cooling. However, the car is now easily recognizable as a Skoda, so that's probably the reason why they put it here. Next to the grille are of course the headlights. It says Skoda crystal lighting on the side. You get standard LED lights on the Enyaq, but if you pay a bit extra you can get matrix LED lights, and I would definitely go for that if you do a lot of driving at night. Under the grille and the headlights you get of course the bumper. It's a real sporty bumper with even real air inlets on the sides, and on the bottom you get this diffuser which is actually pretty big. One more thing about this grille, it's fully closed, but if you want you can get it fully illuminated. If you pay a bit extra, Skoda will install 130 LED lights on the grille. It has no real function, but it looks kinda cool. On the bonnet, again, a lot of sharp lines, but what is most striking is the Skoda logo. It's really big and it's actually not much smaller than my own hand. Now in most electric cars, under the bonnet you get some extra storage space, a so-called frunk. Now in the Enyaq you don't get that, which is not that surprising because in the ID.4 you also don't get it. Instead of storage space, they put the aircon system here, among other things, which means that you get more interior room. And because it's a Skoda, you still get a lot of clever things on this car. For example, this blue cap, which is meant for your windshield wiper fluid. If you open it up, it immediately turns into a funnel. The Enyaq is 4.65 meters, which means it's a bit shorter than an Octavia, but because it's fully electric, you get more interior space. This car has the same interior space as a Skoda Kodiaq. And the car has disc brakes in the front, but it has old-fashioned drum brakes in the back. And that's not because they're trying to save some cost, that's because the car has an electric engine in the back that can also work as a brake when you're regenerative braking. Now on the back on the Enyaq we found this IV badge. Now the IV label is the electric label from Skoda. All electric Skodas, even the plug-ins, get this IV badge. Now below the IV badge we find this 80 badge because this is the car with the 80 kilowatt hours battery. And the rear lights are easily recognizable as Skoda lights with these sharp edges. Alright, let's talk luggage space. We've got an electric tailgate on this car, as you can see. The top cover is actually quite a good top cover. Usually top covers are quite flimsy and they can be a bit annoying. If you hit this one here, it'll just slide back, which is pretty cool. If you pull it back, it just stays put. It's a good top cover. Yeah, it's quite funny actually. Now there's a lot of space here, 585 liters to be exact. You can put the seats down. There's a lever here on the back, and then the seats will go down automatically. Then you have like 1710 liters. There's even more storage space under the false floor. there's a cubby that goes really deep, and there you can put your charging cables. Now in the back on the sides there are a couple of hooks for like your grocery bags, and there's also a 12-volt outlet. This car also has the optional towing hook. There's a button here. If I pull it, it will come up, and then you just have to give it a small push. Like I said before, the car is smaller than an Octavia, but it has the interior space of a Kodiaq, which is the biggest SUV that Skoda sells. Now you really notice that here in the back, because there's a lot of leg room here. I'm 180 and I left the seat as it was when I'm driving, and I've really got a lot of leg room. And there's also enough room for my head. Now you get air vents here in the middle and controls for the heated seats that this car has. And you can also USB-C ports down here, and also a normal household socket so you can plug in your laptop. And you can fold down the armrest, and then you can find 2 extra cup holders, and there's also a ski hatch down here. And because there's no tunnel in the middle, you can easily sit someone here in the middle. They even get their own headrest, but the seat is a bit narrow. Just like the exterior, the interior is pretty different compared to the Volkswagen ID.4. They used different materials, and it all looks pretty classy if you ask me. The dashboard has this swooping line going on here in the center. It looks good, but it also has a function, because you can easily rest your hand here, and then you can steadily use your finger if you're operating the screen. But just like the ID.4, there's a volume slider below the screen that you can slide, and then the volume will go up and down. There's also a mute button next to it, so you can immediately turn off the sound. Now on the seats, on the dashboard, on the center console, on the door panels, you can see this brown leather with white stitching. It looks pretty neat, pretty classy. I think it's fake leather, which is probably better in a green electric car, better for the environment. Now on the steering wheel there are a couple of buttons for track selection, volume control, also cruise control and adaptive cruise control and predictive cruise control. If you use predictive cruise control, the car will recognize if there's a corner coming up, and it will automatically slow down the car a bit. And you can adjust the steering wheel manually, and there are flippers behind the steering wheel. These pedals you can use to set the intensity of the regenerative braking system. And the car I'm driving right now also has the head-up display option, so it will project the speed on your window and also the navigation, so you never have to keep your eyes off the road. Now the infotainment system itself works quite good. There are a lot of menus, but not too many menus. A couple of things are fixed on the lower part of the screen, like your climate control, which is really good, so you don't have to go to a menu when you're driving. You can easily find it here on the screen on the lower part. And below the screen there are 2 air vents. There are also air vents on the side of the dashboard. Below that there's a row of buttons. These buttons you can use for the drive modes, and you go to the climate control very easily. There are different drive modes on this car: Eco, Comfort, Normal, Sport and Individual. If you go a bit lower, here's a place to store your phones, and you can charge them wirelessly. And in the center console there are also 2 cup holders and a place where you can store like your keys. Under the armrest there's also a big cubby. There's a small cubby here and a big one down here. And in the center console you also get the gear selector, which is like the smallest gear selector I have ever seen in my entire life. You can of course use it to put the car in reverse, neutral or drive, and also in B mode. If you put the car in B mode, the car will use the regenerative braking system. So how is it to drive in the Skoda Enyaq? Well, as expected, it drives a little bit like the Volkswagen ID.4. And that's not a bad thing, because the ID.4 really surprised me. Both cars are not that fast for electric cars, because we're used to electric cars doing 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in like 3, 4, 5 or 6 seconds. This car and also the ID.4 takes around 8.5, 8.6 seconds to get to 100 kilometers an hour. However, they do really well in the corners, which is really surprising, because most electric cars are very good in a straight line. This car really isn't, but this car is really good in corners, which makes it a very nice car to drive and a very fun car to drive. And Volkswagen is quite clear why this car doesn't do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in like 3 or 4 seconds. They say they make cars for the masses, for millions of people, and not for people who have millions. And according to Volkswagen, most people don't need a family car that does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in like 3 or 4 seconds, and they're probably right on that. And overall, this is a nice car to be in. There's not a lot of noise from the outside. They did the sound insulation quite good. And you can easily operate the screen, especially if you just rest your hand here. Your finger won't go all over the place. I do have to say, again, this is not the fastest infotainment system I have used, but it's not really slow. It really does the job well, so I have no really complaints here. Now I'm going to put the car in B mode. You just flick the switch here. I think you should always have this car in B mode, so you can get a bit more energy. And it just drives really well when you use the B mode. And overall, I think Skoda's done a really good job with this Enyaq. And if I had to choose between the Enyaq or the Volkswagen ID.4, I think it would be a really tough choice. I'm not so sure about that. If you do let me know in the comments which car you prefer, this car or the ID.4. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.